Hello, this is Julie Burns with HR Education Edge. And today's product that I wanted to feature is my annual training plan for 2024. I know many companies have a training department that perhaps sets this up. However, there are some companies that are smaller that may not have the resources to actually put a training plan together for the entire corporation. So I put this template together in a way that you could go through different pieces of the document and just kind of put your mind towards, hey, what are some things that we want to do? What are some immediate needs? What are the resources? How much money? So if you're a little unsure about your training plan for the year, let's take a look at my annual training plan. On another note, this actual template can be purchased on my Etsy store, which I will link on the bottom of this video. So here we go, annual training plan. It contains critical and or immediate training needs, training goals and objectives, metrics, that's huge, and outcomes. Like I mentioned, the resources you need, core training programs, projects, and activities, mandatory training. Now, that's, as an example, that is where your safety training would come in, your fire evacuation training came in, your hazard materials training comes in, anything mandatory. Then there's a little additional training, and then you're going to have like a review schedule. So let's take a look. There's your front page. As I mentioned, there are the various, that's a table of contents. So, but first, before you even start training, you've got to think about your corporation. What is your organizational mission and vision statement? And just really think, who are your customers? A lot of items need to tie, your training needs to tie into the mission, the vision, and speak to the customer base. So think about your introduction in the beginning. Also, background, you want to think about the year. Think about, what's going on in the previous year. What are some of the need assessments, and what do you see on a day-to-day, or where have you seen that there's possibly a gap in your training, which, if someone came in to train your employees, then they would be up to par and be able to serve your customer base just in a much more effective manner. So describe your training needs assessments during this annual cycle. Like I said, think about the last year. For example, you could also include an individual development plan. And I think that is huge with your employees. This year, you may want to be like, hey, we've got all these great employees, or just in general, every employee, let's get them on an individual development plan. Let's develop them. Let's help them see where they're going in our company. You also want to do an organizational needs assessment. You could even do a SWOT analysis, look at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And that could be your needs assessment. Also, you could do a customer satisfaction survey, and that could tie into your training, so you could see where the gaps were with, servicing your customers. So when you think about that, what are the most critical training needs? Are they an individual growth plan? Do your employees managers need to learn how to do performance reviews? Do your managers perhaps need to learn how to interview managers? And you'll see this in a lot of my documents. I focus in on managers. I really believe that they are a huge key in all organizations. The middle managers, they're reporting up. They're also reporting down. So I always like to see that managers, they always need training, and it is very critical. These individuals in your company are the linchpins that really keep it together. So your critical needs, was there a lot of turnover? What was the problem there? Perhaps was it, the hiring process? Was it the interviewing process? So you look at your critical and your immediate needs and put your training together down on this form and notes. And like it says up here, what training will have the biggest direct impact on your organization? So think about it from that angle. Okay, then you want to scroll on down and just think about this. You don't have to have this perfect in the beginning. You probably want to do this. Maybe it's an HR professional, just go over it and then sit with your corporate executive team or maybe your HR team. Refine this, take the time and just go over and over this until you really get it right and know that you have the resources to execute upon this goal, on this plan, excuse me. Here on this form, training goals, objectives, performance metrics, and outcomes. A lot of people see performance metrics. Oh goodness, that's a lot. We're going to have to go on our Excel sheet and do a lot of calculations. Not necessarily. You could kind of sometimes maybe ballpark it, or actually you could look at one of my videos on KPIs and performance metrics. It was the video right before this one. So describe your organization's training goals, objectives. Think about the performance metrics. You can kind of look at January, February at the beginning and say, we have had turnover, but let's look at the metrics and outcomes. And like I mentioned, goals, they may change from year to year, and you know what? They actually will. So your annual review process should include the opportunity to add, modify, or delete previous goals. As it says on here, however, in order to properly assess your progress, you must include clear metrics by which you will measure success. Also, depending on the organization or intent of the plan, you may need to include data in this section. And like I mentioned, you may want to kind of ballpark it just to get that training goal down on this form, but then go back and look at your turnover in the past, couple months and actually put that down, or your time to hire, put that metric down. If you're looking to train your recruiters on what they're doing and going out and hiring your employees. Resources. You've really got to think about this. When you're training, you're going to have to bring a lot of people together, or you're going to have to, well, not necessarily, everyone. You may actually want to bring some HR consultants from the outside in, which is not a bad idea. You want to list the resources, the budget. Do we have the budget to create booklets, a training program online, maybe have a professional do a program of sorts? And you also got to look at your staff. What's going to be necessary to actually implement your training plan? What's going to be necessary to train the managers on how to do performance reviews? What's it going to take to get your program up to par and just compliant as ever as far as it entails safety? Safety is so key, especially, in different industries. There's no room for any errors. So you may want to get someone from outside to come in and take a look at it. A solid understanding of how your training needs translate to budget and resource planning enables you to successfully forecast project costs and also the duration, and will also improve future planning. And, it's going to take time and time again, just refining this, refining your annual training plan. So once you've identified all your resource needs, you can allocate them to different roles, departments, or programs. So you want to look at your training budget, and probably within your HR budget, you probably have a training, maybe you have a training number. Your training staff, like I said, they may want to be internal, but some really need to be external, those ones that have that specialized knowledge and safety. You want to look at the full-time equivalents, those number of people that are in your company. And so the estimated training staff, travel funds also. Okay, here we go. Core training programs, projects, and activities. You want to list the core training activities and services provided by each training function to your organization. Describe each training activity in terms of the driver. Maybe just think back. Your company has a need. They have a need. It's currently not being met, and you probably have identified that need if you did a SWOT analysis. And that need, how it will impact training in that area of need. So think about the driver, think about the training program, project, and the activity that you want to execute. Like I said, mandatory training, I'm pretty sure you probably already have this in place. Probably new hire training for the employees to go through, a new hire orientation where they go over fire safety, fire evacuation plans, sexual harassment training. Those are some of the mandatory training pieces that if they're not included in your orientation program, they need to be. You can go back and you can look in some of my resources and booklets, or just send me an email and I will let you know what mandatory training is needed. Especially, when you're onboarding new hires. So mandatory training completed by, like you could say, mandatory training, orientation training completed by Julie Burns, the, HR director. Additional training, list additional non-mandatory trainings that you're offering. You always want to look at your employees and you want to, improve their experiences, and you also want to give them the ability to think forward. How can you prepare them for their career? What are their next steps? You want to maybe do some training on the growth of which way they want to go. Like, do they want to be a manager? So maybe they need to go to some managerial training classes or do some shadowing or whatnot. It doesn't have to be anything huge, but very necessary, I would say, in the long term. Now, you're doing, as I mentioned, this particular training plan. You want to draft a schedule for periodic review. Like I said, you're going to need to go back and refine this annual training plan. Probably, quite a few times. As you see, I put for about eight or so lines. You want to maybe set a hard review date or perhaps a milestone. If we look at this, what it says under here, draft a schedule for periodic review, pick a date, and revision of all documentations of your training. For example, individual development plans, conduct of needs assessments, as well as an evaluation of the training program as a whole. What you want to do is continuous improvement. That would be the word. You just want to continuously improve, what you're doing, and training is definitely the way. Also, employees, they truly value when you take the time to train them. I read somewhere employees actually see that the investment you make in their training outweighs actually any kind of monetary increases. Now, that's just what I've read. Definitely don't cut out those scheduled monetary increases knowing that, but that is something to just keep in mind. Plan revision, like I said, once you have completed your basic annual training plan, ensure the periodic updates, reviews, and revisions are part of your strategic plan, as we mentioned. Continually update the plan. Like I mentioned, will help you improve upon existing processes, measure growth identify competencies and weaknesses. I'm going to keep reading. Ultimately, it will help your organization and staff grow. You may even need to revise the plan during its first year to better support overall organizational objectives and take advantage of new opportunities. And I kept it, the verbiage fairly simple so everyone can read and understand what is expected with this review. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be perfect the first time, but you know what? As an organization, as a company, when employees and managers get together and they're training, and people who plan this training, when they get together, big things can happen and new ideas can come out. And then right here, here's the appendix attached. I'm a big proponent of checklists. You may want to attach health and safety checklists for your health and safety orientation program piece, diagrams, or other supporting documents, or include other pertinent procedures. And then right here are the versions. The version, approved by, revision date, description of change, author. And I know this may be a bit extensive if you've never actually done an annual training plan, but it would be so valuable if you took the time with your HR department or your executives and just sat down and just thought about the previous year and just really put pen to paper to put an annual training plan together, especially as this new year is right around the corner. I thank you very much, and this is Julie Burns.